Good afternoon. Welcome to the press center of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine. Here is our weekly update of the situation in the operations area of the joint forces from 5th to 11th November 2018. During the last week, the enemy continued to destabilize situation in the deterrence area of the Russian armed aggression in the Donbass, but the number of violations has decreased comparing with the previous week. In general, over the past week, from 5th to 11th November, the Ukrainian defenders' positions fell under provocative fire by Russian occupation troops for 83 times. Enemy was more active on Donetsk direction. From the beginning of the previous week, enemy used grenade launchers, heavy machine guns, small arms, and other infantry weapons. Also, 120 and 82 mm mortars were used as well. Thus, on November 5th, enemy used prohibited weapons using 4 mines of 120 mm mortars against positions of our forces near Pavlopil. Also, on 6th November, Russian occupation troops for nearly half an hour actively used 82 mm mortars, firing 14 mines. On 7th November, 30 mines from 82 and 120 mm mortars were fired. Only during 8th and 9th November, enemy fired nearly 40 mines from 82 and 120 mm mortar. The situation in the operations area of the joint forces is under full control of the joint forces. Our servicemen opened fire to respond to suppress enemy activity using infantry weapons and by strictly adhering to Minsk agreements. As the result of the activity of Russian occupation forces, 10 of our defenders were wounded in action. We want to inform with grief that 2 servicemen were killed in action as the result of IED explosion which was installed by Russian occupation troops. We express our sincerest condolences to the relatives and loved ones of our deceased defenders, as well as their combat comrades. As for the information from the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, Russian occupation administrations made significant efforts to bring the puppet regimes to power during illegal elections in the temporarily occupied Donetsk and Luhansk regions. So, in addition to large-scale campaigning in places where polling stations were stationed, allegedly at the expenses of the so-called Republican leadership, the sale of food products at the reduced cost took place. In particular, doshel bread was 5 rubles, but the ordinary value is 10 rubles. Poultry was 55, the usual cost is 105 rubles. Citizens in need of social protections like pensioners or persons with disabilities at polling stations were issued food kits including bread, canned goods and carryalls. Moreover, mobile operator Luga.com sent a message to subscribers about the possibility of receiving a free replenishment card in the vicinity of polling stations in the amount of 50 or 100 rubles in case of participations in the so-called elections. At the same time, the employees of the budgetary sphere had got and received SMS messages with threats of dismissal from workplaces in case of refusal of voting and non-appearance at polling stations. President of Ukraine Petro Poroshenko stressed that the countries of the world had condemned the holding of fake elections in the territory of Donbass occupied by Russian Federation. The head of state said in a meeting with the media representatives during the working visit to France that countries of the world to respond to this. And there was clear reaction of the absolute majority of our partners, from European Union to the United States of America, Canada, and individual members of the European Union ranging from Britain to Germany, from France to Spain, Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, Sweden, Romania, by condemning these elections. There was also a statement from Polish partners who called for new sanctions. Also, during trilateral negotiations, the President of Ukraine, Petro Poroshenko, met with President of France and Chancellor of Merkel, condemned fake elections in the occupied Donbass. This reaction clearly states that, on the one hand, these elections will not be recognized by anyone. This is brutal violations of Minsk agreements. On the other hand, there is a call for the responsibility for the Russian Federation as the organizer of these elections. This statement was emphasized by the President. He also thanked the partners of Ukraine for such an expression of solidarity and unity with our country. As for other news, on November 7th, Minister of Defense of Ukraine, Stepan Poltorak, has held talks with the UK Ambassador, Judy Hoff. The parties have discussed the future visit of the Ukrainian Defense Minister to London, as well as bilateral cooperation of the defense ministries of the partner nations. Stepan Poltorak praised the UK support and assistance provided to Ukraine in the context of the ongoing Russian aggression in the east of Ukraine. During press briefing, Deputy Minister of Defense, Lieutenant General Igor Pavlovsky, had stressed that from the beginning of 2018, more than 27,000 servicemen and women, including 1,700 officers, have joined the armed forces of Ukraine. Moreover, to maintain capabilities of mobilization deployment, the number of the first stage operational reserve was increased to 178,000. On November 7th, a meeting between the military law enforcement officers of Ukraine and the Kingdom of Denmark took place in the city of Aalborg at the Military Police Training Center of the Armed Forces of Denmark. The event was attended by the Chief of the Main Directorate of Military Service of Law and Order of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Lieutenant General Igor Kristun. The main purpose of the meeting of the military law enforcement officers of the two countries is development of cooperation and exchange of experience, familiarization with the current principles of the work of the military law enforcement structures of NATO member states, and the implementation of these principles in the work of the armed forces of Ukraine and future military police. This is all information for now. Thank you for your attention. Captain Sharavara Mykhailo from the Press Center of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine.